Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. And we are Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And I thought I would have a couple disclaimers before I get started, because I know we've got a bunch of, well, let's just say we've got some interested observers because of the subject matter. But, just to address a couple of comments of some of the fresh listeners. No, that's iced tea I'm drinking. Those glass ice is clinking. Yeah, that's ice and iced tea. It's not a bourbon or something of that nature. No. Tonight it's Darjeeling. It's hot. It's cold outside. Let's see what else. Oh, yeah. This is not a podcast. This is actually a radio show. Yes, we broadcast live. We don't record on our phone or whatever and then upload it to whatever platform. No, we actually have our own server, and we're hooked up live to a what is it, a broadcaster? Yeah, I guess that's what they call it, Icecast, Shoutcast, something like that. Anyway, so no. Technically, we're actually a radio station, and I am not a podcaster. I am a radio show host. Oh yeah, an owner of a radio station. Not that that means anything, but just to get that straight. All right, anyway, the title of tonight's show, such as it is More California Corruption, something of this nature. I could have gone into great detail, but I got to be honest with you, is that we're going on our third week of this particular subject matter, and tonight's subject matter is going to get extra deep and extra heavy and extra hard, and I'll try to do it all given the time that we have. And I know you guys think I ramble. Well, you know what? Sometimes I channel Grandpa Simpson, and sometimes I just go blank. I try to remember what the heck I was talking about. But, it's like old age, right, kids? Anyway, that's right, Boomer. Now, what else did I want to say? Oh, yeah, another disclaimer. Yes, everyone is guilty until proven innocent. Or did I say that? I meant innocent until proven guilty. That's right. Now, I am going to use a few names, like Vern. Vern, we're going to talk about good old Vern Pearson again. Wow, did he come out to be the bad boy? In fact, he's been messing with everybody. All you guys have been having issues with your computers here the last few days. Yeah, it's Vern. We're going to talk about that. The other people, as far as El Dorado County is concerned, we're going to talk more about El Dorado County, and we're going to dive in a little deeper. And I'm going to try to verbally illustrate how the layers of corruption are set up in order to fleece the public and protect the machine from any kind of scrutiny or transparency or basically interference from, taxpayers and that sort of thing. So we're going to look at that. But we're also going to visit again the source of the money that is really feeding the corruption. And I'm not talking about the human traffickers and those kind of mafia guys. Sure, they do feed the machine, but the big money sources are these land developers. And, we talked about Parker development. We're going to talk about Parker some more, but we're going to have to end up talking about some others. Pretty big ones. My gosh, we thought Parker was wicked. Parker, I don't know what is Parker worth, how many billions of dollars, but we got some other ones. Let's see, Alex Spanos. Then we got the, there's one. Let's see, what's his name? Let me see if I can pull that up for you. Here we go. Whoops, no, that's his son. There we go. Angelo Sikopoulos, Greek guy. I'm not even going to try to get his name right. But I'll tell you, this guy here, he's worth about $2.5 million. He's still alive. Sure, that's less than the Getty, but you're going to see how important these guys are when it comes to Greek. Did I say Greek? California politics. His daughter, I find is lieutenant governor. The last time I tried to warn you guys about a wicked lieutenant governor that needed to be dealt with before it became governor was Gavin Newsom. But did you guys listen? No. It's going to be a repeat, only this time it's going to be the daughter of this guy here with all these billions. And we'll get to him. But before we do that, we're going to go back to El Dorado County. And we already talked about how they create these pools of, slush funds with these taxation boards and stuff like that. I mean, some of these things that they do, to me, I look at it, it's straight out highway robbery. Is that the word? Let's see. More like extortion. You know, there was this, I found this one story, this guy, I mean, I have lists and lists of victims. Here's this one guy, though, and he put like a camper, 72-year-old retiree. He put a camper, a trailer, one of these manufactured prefab homes on a piece of property somewhere out there in El Dorado County. And they slapped him with a $23,000 building fee. Just ridiculous. I mean, the point is that they have this saying that basically goes like this. It says that, well, unless you want to have a dirt road and have to deal with bandits because, you know, there won't be any sheriff, what are you going to do? So, yeah, who's going to pay for those roads? That kind of thing. Anyway. But, yeah, you have a vacant tract out there, and suddenly you're going to get hit with a 5-figure impact fee to fund local roads, highways, bridges, etc., sheriff's department, etc. And, you know, they really need that money. They really need that money to operate. It's amazing. It's amazing what they would do without it. But anyway, let's talk about Vern, my boy Vern here. Now, we had focused on 3 individuals and a whole bunch of other people in the El Dorado Mafia, if you want to call it. We'll just call it that for the time being. Guys, remember, innocent until proven guilty. But I had said that I thought Vern was the bag man. He was the leader. And then I said that there was this other guy, Joe Harns, who was the controller or senior auditor, money guy, treasurer for El Dorado County, who was clearly involved, you know. And not only was he doing all kinds of crazy creative stuff with the funds, but he was getting county employees pregnant and having, well, let's just say pedophile parties in his home, his residence, his estate. And actually injuring minors in the process. You know, the little girl he injured, they sent her to Folsom County to be looked at. So it was outside of El Dorado. But anyway, Vern, though, turns out to be quite an important guy. Now, the other guy we were talking about was this Sheriff D'Agostini, who's kind of out of it right now. He's retired. Now, I'll tell you, I talked to a lot of people since the show. Some of them didn't want to talk to me after the show, but a lot of other people did. And some of these people did not get along with each other. One of them was a woman that spends a lot of time in City Hall and what have you, and they don't like her. I guess you'd call her litigious, but she's pretty sharp. She was way up there. I'll get into her story a little bit, but what's most important is what she told me, and one of the things she told me was that she showed me the Mason connection that I've been looking for. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to say there's nothing wrong with a Mason. Grandpa was a Mason, my uncle was a Mason, Dad was a Mason, brother was a Mason. They're all good men. Grandma was an Eastern Star, whatever. But the point is that we know better, and we're not here to hide it, or argue about that, but we're going to show that the Masons and the control structure of the Masons and the secret societies and the fraternities, the fraternal structure, is a very big part of modern law enforcement. Very big part of modern law enforcement. Now, I don't have any dirt about Vern with respect to the Masons, but I do have some with D'Agostini. Now, here's the thing. I talked to his campaign manager. And before I knew it was D'Agostini's campaign manager, we talked quite a bit about corruption involving Vern in the city and the county and the various structures. Again, we'll get into the details, but I had no idea until later in the conversation. He basically told me that he was this close to the previous sheriff. So I'm going to count him in the friendship file. And I don't have any animosity to any of these people because, like I said, innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, I did ask him if he was aware of the Masonic stuff. And he wasn't. He had no idea. Now, like I said, I do have a text that was leaked from the local lodge about his ascension to Master Mason. And we're going to read that. But before we do that, we're going to talk about Vern. And now Vern has a lot of biographies out there. But if you do a little bit of digging and you read some of the more, well, lengthy biographies, you'll see that this guy, he's not just some podunk DA. He's actually a very worthy opponent, and he has a killer background, literally. So let me just start off by reading a little bit of Vern's bio that he's got out there. Let me see how long is it. This is actually a little bit longer than what I've seen in other places, but I think it's important because a lot of the stuff that's in here is important when we profile good old Vern here. Know what I mean, Vern? Okay, here we go, Vern. This is your life. What is he? He's got a slogan. Vern Pearson, a voice of reason. He's running for office constantly. In January of 2007, Vern became the El Dorado County's district attorney. During his career, Vern has prosecuted a countless number of cases ranging from misdemeanor violations to violent, sophisticated career criminals, sex offenders, murderers, including the murder of CHP officer Scott Russell, as well as Phil and Nancy Garrido for their 1991 abduction of J.C. Lee Dugard. In addition, he has personally prosecuted more than 100 cases through jury trial and has been assigned as a vertical prosecutor for domestic violence and sexual assault. In addition to being a county prosecutor, Vern served for several years with the California Department of Justice as Deputy Attorney General in the Appeals, Writs, and Trials Division. Additionally, Vern created a highly successful cold homicide task force and developed one of the first paperless prosecutor's offices in California. For more than 5 years, Vern served as the county's chief technology officer. I'm going to stop right here. Chief technology officer for 5 years. Now, I have all sorts of transcripts where he sort of talks about this stuff, where this comes into play, because one of the things that this guy does, and one of the things that gives him his power and his ability to have successful prosecutions, is the fact that he's a fucking hacker. And he does so at the discretion of the county and the federal government and the Department of Homeland Security, with full credentials and full access. So he can get everybody's emails, not just within the county system, but he's fucking with your computer right now. So I know he's fucking with mine. So he'll play that down. But you see, the thing is those 5 years he spent as the head IT guy. Remember, this is not an IT guy. This is a criminal. But why would a criminal want to be the head of IT for like 5 years? To get the knowledge and the access and set up the back doors and to do everything he needed to do to make sure that he could utilize that information at his discretion for any kind of crucifixion, attack, or any criminal activity he may conspire to do using this unfair advantage. So that, of course, right away got my attention. Like, oh, he's got a reach. He's got an electronic reach, people. He also sits on the board of directors for the California District Attorneys Association and is the co-chair of the association's ethics and insurance fraud committees. Now, ethics, of course, is important because, of course, we're talking about a fucking criminal here with no ethics. Innocent until proven guilty. Now, here's one of the parts that's kind of scary. Verne continues to instruct law enforcement officers and prosecutors, which includes recent presentations of the paperless prosecutor's office for the CDAA and creating the virtual crime scene using drone technology for CDAIA. He is currently developing an update for his book, the California Evidence Pocketbook, that is published by the California District Attorneys Association and used daily by prosecutors throughout the state. Yes, that is a conflict of interest, and yes, he is getting paid by the prosecutor, by the office that he's working for, that is selling his book and making it mandatory reading for everybody in the office. Just a little bit, okay? Verne was instrumental in the passage of several pieces of legislation, including drafting of AB 141, Cone, which expands the use of propensity evidence in child abuse and domestic violence cases. After learning a teacher who was charged with child molestation was seeking retained teaching credentials, Verne drafted the other bill. But before we talk about that, I want to get back to this whole concept of propensity evidence. What is propensity evidence? Well, let's see. Propensity evidence. It's character evidence. It's character evidence. Well, this guy, he likes to watch porn, and, he's kind of he's a pothead. What else? Let me see. He drinks a lot of that Monster drink. Yeah, that's it. And he yells at the news. He really hates those. He likes Trump, but he hates those liberals. Well, right away, that guy's crazy. That guy is a racist psycho. There's another thing he likes to use. It's called psychological mechanisms. Let's get back to that here. See if I can find that good part. But anyway, apparently a child molester was seeking to retain his teacher's credentials, and Verne drafted this bill which forever barred convicted sex offenders from working in our classrooms. Our classrooms, people. What about the children? Not in our classrooms. Even in our classrooms? Yes, even in our classrooms. Let me tell you something. These psychopaths project constantly. Constantly. Some of the most sickening stuff is like, the whole 9/11 rah-rah USA thing. Oh, it's those damn Muslims. It's those white supremacists. No, it was the fucking NSA. It was Israel. It was Mossad. No, that's not what the government says. All right, well, let's go back a little bit to Verne. So what else fun stuff? Yes, he's basically affecting thousands of police officers throughout the state. Thousands of them. They think this guy's wonderful. He can do no wrong. Verne enlisted in the U.S. Army at the age of 18 and served in the 101st Airborne Air Assault. He attained the rank of sergeant and is a graduate of the Army's Airborne Air Assault Schools. The recipient of the Army Commendation and Army Achievement Medals, Verne attended the Non-Commissioned Officers Academy in Germany, and he graduated with the rare distinction of simultaneously being designated the honor graduate and the recipient of the Leadership Award. Verne also represented USAR in a combat marksmanship team and served with the 1/8th Long Range Surveillance Detachment Airborne. Verne's military experience and strong work ethic were instrumental in helping him earn his way through college and then law school. Upon graduation, he ranked near the top of his class with honors, including the American Jurisprudence Award for Scholarship and Excellence in Constitutional Law. Ha! I'm sorry, that just makes me choke right there. Verne completed a master's degree in the Homeland Security at the Center for Homeland Defense and Security at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California. Let me just let you dwell on that for just a little bit. Here's another good one. He presented Rethinking the Psychology of Terrorism at the International Terrorism and Organized Crime Conference in Anaheim, California. The Psychology of Terrorism. Let me just give you a little bit about the psychology of terrorism according to the National Library of Medicine, a government agency. They talk about extremism, literature, and radicalization, and what have you. They talk about distinctions. But let's look at the summary of what they say, because I think when you read through their pages of material that you'll see the summary. Let's see if I can get the summary. Well, let's just read this little part here. Healthy and adaptive anger generates healthy and adaptive motives for changing the environment. Sometimes aggression is necessary to change the environment. For example, the revolutionaries in the 1999 anti-communism revolution in Romania were angry towards Ceausescu. Okay, that was good. Wow, they shot Ceausescu. Well, here's the thing, without being able to read through here and find the exact paragraph I want to say, but what they're doing here is they're suggesting, first of all, that anybody that goes against the norm or goes against the so-called democratic institutions and what else they have, racist views, lack of acceptance for, well, universal human rights. Now the thing is okay, here we go. To summarize, radicalization is the process of developing extremist beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. Got to get those behaviors in there. The extremist beliefs are profound convictions, kind of like Occupy the Getty, that oppose the fundamental values of society. You know, that it's okay for the government to round up your children and use them for satanic sacrifice with no transparency. The laws of democracy, remember we're a republic, and universal human rights, which has nothing to do with anything. By advocating the supremacy of a particular group, racial, religious, political, economic, social, etc. Now, again, by advocating the supremacy of a particular group, where does that come in? Apparently, let me just say this. If it turned out that all the Satanists are eating the babies and running everything underneath the Getty turned out to be of a certain tribe, would everybody that was not a member of that tribe be considered extremist and advocating some sort of lack of universal human rights and, contempt for life, freedom, and human rights, this kind of bullshit? Deviate from the norm. Anyway, point is, Vern, you're a fucking Nazi. Okay? You're a bona fide Nazi. And what else can we say before we move on to the rest of the gang? Let's see. Vern and Cindy, his wife of 27 years, continue to be actively involved in supporting at-risk children and military veterans. At-risk children. Wow. There's some more psychopath activity. This last December marked their 8th Snowball shopping event, an annual endeavor where more than 180 at-risk children go Christmas shopping with members of law enforcement, fire service, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters mentors. As a result of this effort, both founded and supported by Vern and Cindy, not only have more than 1,000 children directly benefited by receiving more than $250,000 in much-needed necessities, but the community has as well by building a bond between first responders and at-risk children. Additionally, Vern formed a 5-member team to compete in the annual Baton Memorial Death March as a fundraiser for veterans. In addition to raising thousands, he and his team completed the full marathon carrying more than 35 pounds, winning the civilian heavy category. I'm sorry, soldiers carried a lot more than 35. Vern and Cindy regard their 3 children as their greatest accomplishments. First Lieutenant Sam Pearson serves as a mortar platoon leader in the 82nd Airborne. Yeah. Sergeant Chad Pearson also served in the 82nd Airborne and deployed to Iraq. And their daughter, forget this name, I don't know what the hell it's supposed to be. She's in college with the goal of being a public school teacher. Well, isn't she ambitious? She must be so proud, Vern. All right, enough about Vern Pearson. I'm sorry, people. It kind of makes me nauseous to read about this guy because they do so much to make this really slick public appearance, and yet they're dirty, dirty, dirty. Now, they can't all be as dirty as, say, the other guy. I'm about to pull my notes. Oh, Harn. Joe Harn. I mean, come on, Joe Harn. He's at least Vern over here's got Cindy, and he's not running around and having the pedophile parties like Joe. But what I have heard a couple of times, and remember, I've heard a lot of complaints, is that if you want to do anything in the county whatsoever, if you even want a job in the county whatsoever, you have to have a meeting first, private meeting with Vern and Joe behind closed doors. Whoever you are, whatever it is. And from what I understand, if you're not one of Vern's boys, well, yes, thank you for the notes. I'll pull those notes up. You're not going to get anywhere. In other words, you don't get anywhere if you're not one of Vern's boys. Well, if you get past Vern and Joe, you don't have to talk to the sheriff. We'll get to that, but you get to talk to the man from Parker Development, Kirk Bone, the government relations officer, who will put you, well, apparently he will, quote, get you all the money you need. So it all starts out with a private meeting with Joe and Vernon, and then you get a second meeting with Kirk Bone. Isn't that bizarre? Now, I look at Kirk Bone, he's kind of up there. He's an older gentleman. These guys look soft to me, like the guys over there at Parker Development. They all look kind of soft. But this is definitely the bag man. Well, I don't really need to read all these notes here, but suffice it to say that I am looking at some notes right now that have a list of people that I've been talking to, people that have been providing testimony, and their phone numbers, of course. And the numbers here of one of the things that's kind of noticeable is the math, the amount of money people have had to spend going up against Vern in their legal battles. 100,000, 150,000. This is common. Who's got that kind of money? Remember, they're using public funds to do everything. Well, now Vern is very right-wing. He passes himself off as a Republican, which is interesting, and he definitely hates Gavin Newsom, which is also interesting. But the point is that some of these people that are paying these guys off aren't necessarily of a conservative persuasion, like these guys over there at Parker. Again, they're not even the big boys. Now, according to the sheriff, his man, he says that the real big guys are this Greek guy at AKT Development. I had to look him up, Angelo Takatskopoulos. But he's not the only one. There's quite a few others. You know what I am going to do before I go into the larger investors and the larger developers? I am going to talk about the Masonic stuff. Now, I know D'Agostini, if anything, has been, of the three in the triad that I named, he may be the bulldog, he may be the gauntlet, he may be the heavy in all these operations, and certainly Vern is certainly at the middle of everything. But let me just read this one little thing that the sheriff does not like to talk about, but it was leaked from the Masons. Okay, and this was posted August 6th, 2011 by somebody in his lodge, and it was leaked. El Dorado County. John D. Agostini, Sheriff of El Dorado County, to be raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason. Having done the entered apprentice and fellowship degrees as a young man, D'Agostini, Sheriff of El Dorado, is completing his journey and is going to be raised at his home lodge, Dry Town Lodge 174 in Plymouth. Quote, after I turned 21, I asked my dad and he sort of got the ball rolling for me, and I went through the first two pretty fast. I got sidetracked with life, with my focus on my young family and my career change in the early 90s. I kind of fell out of masonry for a long time, said DeAgostini. The time is now right to do this. Armed with the knowledge that DeAgostini had not yet done the fellowship proficiency and that he was on the doorstep of being a Master Mason, John Dusty Durvek went and saw DeAgostini in his office. He said, John, you're going to do your proficiency in the lodge, and I will be your coach. We will meet at least once or twice a week in your office, and you will do your proficiency. John looked Dusty in the eye and said, you're serious, aren't you? Dusty said, yes, I am serious. With the scheduling help from Janine, John's wife, regular meetings on Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. were set up in Dusty's words. Let me tell you, he is a sharp, fast learner. He very quickly learned it, and he passed his proficiency in open lodge with his father in attendance. Now, John says, back when I was a little boy, they used to have Masonic picnic every year. Back here, the ranch right down the hill from where I live now, said DeAgostini. I grew up well aware that my grandfather, John DeAgostini, former supervisor for Alvarado County, was a past master. And I remembered my dad, Bob DeAgostini, going to the lodge on Wednesday nights. Even Janine has an Uncle Bill who is a past master. The Agostini family roots are deep in El Dorado County, John's being the fourth generation in the county. Clearly, their Masonic roots run deep also. The busy schedule of a county sheriff make attendance of all lodge functions challenging, but John is well aware of the benefits of being active in any organization. His being raised on the 6th opens the door for him to continue his Masonic education. He knows that the York Rite, Scottish Rite, and Shrine will be available to him. The time is right for John. The stars, badges maybe, have aligned, and he will finally be able to call John my brother. We should take this opportunity to also look to others who have gotten sidetracked with life, who just have the apprentice and fellowship degrees and make their visit much the way Dusty did, help them to complete the journey. Now, it just goes on with some Masonic business, but the point that I'm trying to drill into is the connection to law enforcement, which if you're in the industry, you'll know is pervasive. The California Masonic Posse will be conferring the degree at Dry Town Lodge in Plymouth. It's been rumored that our former sheriff, past potentate, past master, etc., Hal Barker, may have had a hand in them coming. The lodge is located on a church and Main in Plymouth, just about 25 minutes south of Poor Reds. Poor Reds. Turn into town, El Dorado Highway, blah, blah, scheduled, blah, 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 stand meetings. Oh, they're going to have barbecue and hot dogs and hamburgers at no cost to guests in attendance. But you're welcome to bring your spouse or your girlfriend. And they want you to bring a dish. Okay. Oh, yes, dress comfortably. Please, no shorts. But tie or jacket are not necessary either. How about that, huh? Just some good old boys. It's, I'll tell you, when I was working with lasers and law enforcement, I used to get patches. Guys would send me their guns to have the laser installed. I'd say, hey, you want a discount? Send me a patch. Send me one of your patches from your department. I had a nice little collection. I thought it was cool having a patch from all these different departments from all over the country. But many of these things had Masonic symbolism on the badges, on the patch. So it's you kind of wonder about that. But yeah, it is a big deal. They say it has to do with the Templars. Now, in Sheriff John's defense here, I did tell his associate that, listen, I'm going to be doing a show here Thursday. And of course he said, wasn't that Thanksgiving? No, that's next week. But I said, from what I understand, John was the bulldog for the bad guy, Vern and Joe. And he may not have liked what he was doing, but he certainly must have known, and he certainly must be beholden to the Masons and everything involved. And I told him, I said, listen, he's still the head law enforcement guy in that area, and he's responsible for that corridor going up the 50 freeway that we know is being used for human trafficking. He didn't really have anything to say about that, but I said, I invite the sheriff to talk to me and give me his opinion because A, he's obviously a master mason and he obviously knows what that is. And if he'd care to renounce that, I'd be happy to hear him say that. And if he'd like to tell me how everything he did was because Vern had dirt on him, well, I want to hear that too. Because, I've said this often, if you're a victim, you need to come clean and tell us what's going on. Now, the one thing, of course, that he did tell me about the associate of the sheriff was this AKT development. And he said that AKT development were the big guys and that they were the ones giving most of the money to Joe Harn to be passed out amongst whoever was getting paid off. So I found that interesting, and I had to dig into that. And of course, one of the things I think that's probably the most interesting about this particular guy, he's not the only one. We're gonna see a pattern. He's very liberal. So yes, he is close to Nancy Pelosi. He is close to Gavin Newsom. He's also very close to Kamala Harris. Now, there was an issue between AKT development and Joe Harn and the county. And I don't know the details because my notes are not as good. My note-taking is not as good as it could be. But the bottom line is that the case involving payoffs or something with AKT development to Joe Harn was dropped by the Department of Justice, who was being led at the time by Kamala Harris. I find that very interesting. Kind of like the way I found the fact that Angelo Takakopoulos, whatever AKT development guy that's been funding everybody, Democrat and Republican, his daughter is in office right now as lieutenant governor. And apparently they spent millions to get this troll-looking woman in office as lieutenant governor. But here's the thing that she does. First of all, she pushes these environmentally friendly, liberal-type causes like cities that don't require cars and you could walk across the entire city. Very, modern, utopian is what they try to push this on. This is going to be a reoccurring theme again. But again, what do we know about these utopian societies? Lots of common area, lots of special taxation, slush funds that pay forever. That's the plan. It happens on both sides of the aisle, and it happens in every single one of these communities. So this woman, this daughter of the Greek dude, the old Greek guy, she wants to be governor. They're going to try to make her governor. When Gavin, he can't run another term. They're going to try to slip in there president again. Obviously, he's going to be running against J.D. Vance. But they're going to put this woman in there. Now, one of the things that I find very disturbing is that not so much that these guys are Greek, that doesn't bother me at all, but they all seem to promote certain people in certain parts of the government. Now Joe Harn, we know that him in his position, he certainly has the potential to play with the money and disrupt things. But there's other people that are also extremely, there's another guy, Phil Angeles, I believe his name is. He was a treasurer for California. And he was basically installed by this family, another Greek immigrant. Now, why does that seem strange? Why is that bothersome? Again, these are people that pay off everybody, huge amounts of money. They create slush funds that pay forever. They screw with real estate value. They own the appraisal system, the oversight for all of these so-called public oversight agencies that monitor these things. They control the courts, they control the law enforcement, and they control the government. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. But they certainly love to attack people, and they certainly love to use those public expenses to step all over people's rights, persecute people, persecute anybody that comes after them. I'm waiting for them to come after me, obviously. I know that they're attacking my computer right now. I'm sure the Vern boy will come up with something here before too long. He's already going after my people. Obviously, I can see that to some degree. But what do you expect? They're all involved in this Homeland Security crap. You know who else is involved in the Homeland Security crap? These developers. You know what else they're involved in? Medicine. Universities. It's one big mafia. Well, guys, there's not really too much more I really want to tell you. I mean, obviously, I'm expecting Vern to come after all of us, and I expect that they're going to probably come up with some sort of, what is it, domestic terrorism type nonsense, no doubt. But I got to tell you, billions and billions of dollars are involved. These developers. One of them, let's see, a Czech guy, he bought something like 40,000 acres around Travis Air Force Base around Sacramento. Completely secret. With his company of Flattery Development. Of course, there's no Flattery. He's Czech. But apparently there's one Irish guy and one of the investors. But, you know, there's you know who else is really involved in this stuff is some of the hedge funds and a lot of the big names in Silicon Valley. When I say big names in Silicon Valley, I mean people like, Google, Apple, big companies like this. And a lot of people who are executives in big companies that have passed, like, let's see, Mark Anderson, where did he come from? There's a guy, there's this one, let's see, venture capital fund. I mean, some of these venture capital funds, they've got what? Here's one, $42 billion. They're going to buy up all the farmland. They're going to have sprawl everywhere. They're going to basically move everybody into these cities, and they're going to create these slush funds. And this is the big thing now. This is the big investment, and everybody's going to get it rammed down their throat. One of the big guys here that's doing it is a guy named, let's see if I can get his name up, Spanos. Now, the original Spanos died here in 2018, American billionaire real estate developer, another Greek dude. But his company is still very large, and they build rental property. And they're some of the largest developers that are paying money into these funds or these agencies run by people like Vern. Everything's got to go past Vern. All these people have to go past Vern. You know who else has to go past Vern? The Indian tribes. Their money hits Vern first. He's getting that too. You know who else is a big player in all this? The Chamber of Commerce. You know who runs the Chamber of Commerce? The Masons. You can't do anything without the approval of the Chamber of Commerce. You know who's attached to the Chamber of Commerce? The local newspaper. What's it called? The Mountain Democrat. Obviously a very liberal-sounding rag, but apparently the Mountain Democrat and the Chamber of Commerce work hand in hand to influence local politics and decide who gets to do what. It's amazing what this stuff does, how they can get away with it. Gosh, if I had tea, I'd be going clink clink right now. Anyway, guys, let me just say this. You know, I'm really kind of fed up with the whole business. And I know I've dove into something that's really deep and ugly, and it's much larger than this one asshole, Vern Pearson, who's a very big player, but he's You know, he's only as big as the billions that are behind him, the billionaires. So there's a lot of evil to go around. But what really gets me, I think, is the greed. It's pretty ugly. And it's on every level. I suppose the stupidity and the inability of anybody to see this. You know, I mean, obviously, it's like you look at Vern, you see this choir boy. No. Why in the hell can't people look at Vern and see something more like what you see when you see this Joe Harn character with his pedophile parties and such? I don't get it. I guess he keeps them both clean. Anyway, I'll probably continue depending on what feedback I get, because I know people are going to complain. They're going to say, well, you didn't mention this, you didn't mention that. But yes, like I said, I have a whole list of victims, all with crazy stories. And a lot of them, many of them, involve Vern's ability to decide who gets to have access to emails and various different IT issues. So this 5 years he spent in IT are still playing a big role in his ability to prosecute and persecute. Something that we should pay more attention to. But these other developers, obviously with their billions, what are you going to do? But this urban sprawl that they're supposed to be, they want to put out there, these so-called 15-minute cities, this is not a good thing. People need to become aware that these special tax districts they create with these things, these public areas, are nothing more than slush funds that pay into this mafia forever, continuously, becoming greater and greater every day. So it has to stop somewhere. But then, how did this woman become lieutenant governor? How did that ugly troll become lieutenant governor? You know, I see pictures of her in the Capitol having sistership connections, you know, climate change cooperation going on with their sisters in the Netherlands. You know what I see? Bitches. Sorry, girls. They're using that against us. Kamala, this bitch, it doesn't matter. No different than the father that has the $2.5 billion that installs his son at UC Davis, installs his daughter in the state capitol for what? Policy. Same reason he installed Angelides as the treasurer. Kickbacks. Slush funds. Just like Joe Harn manages. Just like Vern Pearson controls. Anyway, massive amounts of corruption, okay? So yeah, and I'm not saying that Vern is the only corrupt DA. I'm not saying that El Dorado County is the only corrupt county. I mean, obviously, this is every county, not the least of which is Sacramento. Obviously, LA, every county has got this stuff going. There's Vern Pearsons everywhere. He just happens to be a really powerful one, a very influential one that wants to be higher up there in office, just like this daughter of this billionaire developer that pays everyone off wants to be higher in office. What a wonderful system we have. You know what? Before we leave, I just want to say this, you guys. Do you have any idea how close we are to World War III? Seriously. Thank you, lame duck Biden, for sending ATACMS missiles into Russia, even after Putin said that this will be a nuclear war attack offense on the territory of Russia if you do it. They did it anyway. And even Keir Starmer, the pedophile himself, the guy that got Jimmy Savile out of trouble, he says, well, we must not stand up to Russian aggression and we must support Ukraine. You know, Russia today responded to those ATACMS missiles, the ones that all got shot down, but some of the debris killed some actual soldiers in one of the bases that were attacked. They dropped a new intercontinental medium-range missile, hypersonic, 23 kilometers a second, multi-reentry vehicles, a MIRV, each one traveling at hypersonic speeds to their targets. absolutely impossible to defeat. They debuted this system today in theater in Ukraine against a factory with conventional warheads, conventional explosives. But when you see these things coming in out of the atmosphere at high speed, like a freight train, the missiles are surrounded with plasma that is generated in order for them to travel at hypersonic speeds. And when you see it coming in and hitting the target, it's definitely otherworldly. We have nothing. We have no analog and we have no method to stop this. And Putin flat out said, this is your last warning. We have devices to take you out if you continue to do this shit that you're not even aware of. So just be advised, if they fire in more of these things before Trump gets in there, we're all in deep, deep doo-doo. And of course, Russia is doing their best to take this into consideration. But I just want to say one thing here. Donald Trump has a new slogan. That slogan is, Trump will fix it. Now, this sounds strangely reminiscent of the slogan that Jimmy Savile had. Jim will fix it. Wow. I hear that, and then I think of old Keir Starmer over there reading a script saying how they need to support Ukraine. And I remember how he helped Jimmy Savile get out of trouble. Kind of makes you wonder, huh? Kind of makes you wonder. Who came up with that slogan, right? Somebody wasn't thinking. Anyway, people. All right, I'm going to let you go, and I hope, Vern, I hope it was okay. The rest of you guys that are listening, I didn't name your names, you know. I just, and like I said, Sheriff, I did give you the opportunity to talk to me about whatever went down, and I probably pulled my punches with you tonight, although plenty of people out there say that you were a pretty bad dude. They're all bad dudes. Nothing new. Right? Okay. Before I leave, I'm going to remind you all, if you want to help me out economically, you need to use my PayPal, which is StephenKelly714@yahoo.com. And you got to say it's for friend or family, or I will send it back. If you want a copy of the book, you want to become a Jedi, you want any information, you want to harass me, whatever, send me an email to law17gun@aol.com. Anyway. What else? Also, join my Telegram group. You too, Vern. Join my Telegram group. And trust me, you won't find any of your terrorism on there. But we'd appreciate it if you would consider doing it. And again, the Telegram group is Occupy the Getty /Stephen D. Kelly on Telegram. That is about it. Let's see what else. I mean, I will hopefully endeavor to get more stuff on my Rumble channel soon, but I do hope you enjoyed the show. And again, if you have any comments and you want to harass me over it or correct me about anything, please, again, law17gun@aol.com. I'm welcome your email. And with that, I'm just going to remind you that this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and I am Stephen D. Kelly, still. And we are Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com, the one and only. All right. Okay, guys. I look forward to seeing you in the group. And I want to thank all of you that have stayed here for the entire show. And again, those of you that think I didn't do a good enough job, I apologize. But you know what? I still love you all. Okay? So with that, I'm going to say good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.